All right, welcome back to another Lure Lab episode here on the Serious Angler Network. I am your host, Andrew Full, and you'll notice today is a little different. It is just me here on the screen. We as a team decided that we are going to start inviting on special guests to break down their favorite technique or a technique that they are very good at and describe how they fish it, the rods, etc., everything to you. We want to see how this direction takes place and going forward. So we'll be doing this for the time being, and we're going to be bringing on special guests every week. I apologize if you hear me cough a couple times. I just got over the flu, and I think I have a little bit of pneumonia setting in. So I have quite a bit of shortness of breath, but we're just going to pound this out. So it's kind of fun. But today we have an awesome episode for you. We're going to have a Finger Lake hammer on, and who has also been up at Lake Ontario, just blasting away on giant smallmouth bass. And we're going to be talking about blade baits and one very specific blade bait that me and our special guest here truly do love. I don't think anybody loves it more than Kurt does, as I spill the beans. We have Kurt Hoefig coming on. So without further ado, before I spill any further, let's get Kurt on. What's up, man? How's it going?
How we doing?
Good. Sorry about that little rant there. I completely spilled the beans, which is kind of funny. It's first time having a special guest on to discuss technique and bait with all of our viewers and listeners. So I think it's pretty cool the fact that you are the inaugural one, and we're also discussing something that people really love in the blade bait. So, yeah. How you
Awesome.
been?
Well, I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you having me. I love blade baits just about as much as anyone, so I'm happy to talk about them.
Yes. So we can dive right into it. Let's dive right into it, right? So what is that blade bait of choice for you and why?
There's a lot of good blade baits out there, and it's kind of like a jerk bait, or it's kind of like a lot of other lures. All of them will catch fish, but everyone has their favorite ones. For me, and it's been this way since I first picked up a blade, it's going to be the Binsky blade bait by Fish Sense Lures. I've got one rigged up right here. That's her. That's a half ounce. I don't know if that's a really good angle of her, but
It works.
ounce, 3/4 ounce Binsky to me is like the be all end all of blade baits. And I've used all of them, but the more I fish it, the more I just kind of hone in on that bait as like that's my confidence lure, especially when the water dips down into the colder temperatures. And that's the one that gets them in the boat for me.
Is it because of like the rapid startup and how it always runs true every time? Is that the reason why you kind of
Yeah,
see yourself going to the Binsky over everything else?
the biggest thing with it for me, why I like it the most, there's a bunch of reasons, but the biggest one is going to be contact. And
Mm-hmm.
we'll go into that as far as working the bait. But contact is the biggest thing in blade bait fishing, and being able to feel your blade perfectly and knowing exactly what it's doing and have it engage as soon as you lift your rod tip. As soon as you lift your rod tip, have that bait engage and having like ultimate control over it. I think that the Binsky lets you do that better than any other blade bait I've ever used. And a couple of things, profile to me when you look at it just looks like the best one. I think that's part of it as well.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna say I love that cone head design where you can
right,
tell that the weight is almost like nose forward on it, and I think that's part of the reason why you have such good contact with it because that nose hits the ground so solidly as to where a lot of other blades on the market that weight is on the belly
right, and
usually.
or upswept
Yeah.
backside. In how a lot of blades like the original designs of them, it would be like more of a flat profile, and the back would sweep up. Where the Binsky having like more of like a downward shape to it, I think is like a little bit more of a natural look, and it lends itself to being like just an ultimate control kind of lure.
Yeah, that's a great point. So let's kind of dive into the setups, right? So what setups do you like to use to throw the Binskis like? And I know there's what, four different sizes? Was it quarter, half, quarter, three eighths, half, three quarters?
Three sizes, so
Three.
quarter, half, quarter, yeah.
That's right. So
And they cover a lot of ground, and there's like a huge application for all of them. I use all of them. But yeah, and I kind of vary my setup according to the weight of the lure. Essentially, for my half ounce rod and my 3/4 ounce, this kind of covers it both, because you got to think it's a treble hook bait, and when you're fighting fish, you kind of got to think crankbait. It's not something. It's not like a frog in the lily pads where you're just like winching them in. Once they're hooked up, you got to have something that has a little bit of give to them, especially with smallmouth. Everyone knows smallmouth fight like crazy. This is like a really smallmouth dominant lure. And so I lean a lot towards like medium action rods. Casting or spinning rods work fine. It's not really kind of preferences. For the half ounce and 3/4 ounce, I prefer a casting rod. I got one rigged up right here. That's a 100 size Daiwa Tatula. And then we have a Fenwick Techna PX 7-foot medium. A medium action I find to fish it really well. Something sensitive. You don't have to go crazy and break the bank, but something I found, a rod that has a quick tip to it. And what I mean by that is an industry standard when you look at like a picture or a illustration of rod actions. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I like a rod that doesn't really move a whole lot on the tip. So it's I don't want to call it stiff, but it's really responsive. You know what I mean? I don't like a rod that has like a really mellow tip on the top section.
You just want something that pops back relatively
right
quick.
I want something that can be instant. As soon as I pick it up, it's instant. And this Fenwick Techna PX is like super instant. I have great feel with it, but it's a medium action, so when you load that rod up, you know what I mean, you can keep these little treble hooks pinned, because a lot of times fish are going crazy, and the smallmouth can be hard to keep buttoned sometimes.
And then, what length is that rod real fast?
That's a 7-foot. This is a technique where you don't want to go less than 7 foot. To me, you can go anywhere from like 7 to 7.6. But once you go less than 7 foot, I find you just like lose a lot of control, because it's like a rod up technique, right? Yeah. And the more reach you have, you don't have to go crazy and use like an 8-9 foot rod, but the more reach you have, the more you're going to be able to control it. If you're using like a 6.6, I find you kind of like end up just losing your bait, and you're not able to control it as well.
Now, if you're vertical fishing it, could you go per se with like that shorter rod?
Yeah, definitely. You can, casting obviously it lends itself to having like a slightly longer rod, not for distance, but for control. Vertical, it probably doesn't matter nearly as much as far as the length goes.
And now, yeah, got it. And are you a braid to fluoro type guy, or are you a straight fluoro when you fish it?
I've been around the gamut with all the different lines for this, and when I was first getting into blades, I was fishing on straight fluorocarbons, like straight 12-pound fluorocarbon. That's a great way to fish it. For me, I've just noticed a huge difference in landing fish, not necessarily working the bait, but landing fish with braid. And this is a 20-pound braid for the half ounce with a 12-pound fluoro leader. I don't really use the 20 for strength as much as I do for or for diameter, right? So I find with a little bit thicker line, 20-pound, not that that's like a really thick line, but as far as like a treble hook bait goes, this 20-pound, because of the diameter of it, I can work the bait slower, because it kind of grabs the water a little more, and I can work the bait slower with 20-pound than I can, say, with like a really light braid. When I go to the 1/4 ounce, that's when I generally fish a 1/4 ounce on a spinning setup. There's a 7.1 Dobbins Caden, medium light, 2500 Vanford, and I've got like an 8 or 10-pound braid in there. I don't really remember, and then a 10-pound lead. I find the spinning rod it helps you control a little 1/4 ounce Binsky. That and the 1/4 ounce is one of the most deadly ones. I feel like it's probably one that a lot of people really sleep on, is that small size. But if you have like a good opportunity of a low wind day, that 1/4 ounce can be super, super deadly.
And it'll get down pretty quick still on that like 10-pound braid and 10-pound fluoro, which is nice.
It's a small profile bait. I mean, only being a 1/4 ounce, it doesn't have any plastic attached to it, or it doesn't have anything else. So it gets down super fast. It's really compact. And even though it's a 1/4 ounce, you can fish it. Once you get the roll with it, you can fish it in like pretty more gnarly conditions than you'd expect.
Yeah. I've noticed the same. Unfortunately, I've yet to catch one on that small one. Like half ounce is my happy place when it comes to the Binsky, but I'm usually fishing it in 30 to 50 foot of water. So for me to have that feel in contact and fish it as fast as I want, I always just opt for a bait casting setup, and the half ounce Binsky. There's nothing better.
Half ounce is the go-to, and that's one, if I were to like give people pointers on start, Binsky or a blade bait in general, a half ounce is like a really good one to start out with because it allows you to kind of get that concept of contact the best. Once you kind of get the feel for the half ounce, obviously the 3/4 ounce as well, but the half ounce, once you get the feel for that, the 1/4 ounce should be next up for you because that can really, really smack them.
Fantastic. I have a bunch. I usually have one tied on when I got that blade bait bite going, but usually the issue for me is once they start eating the blade, then you have the right color and the half ounce, they just don't stop until the school just like disappears on Night
Right.
Alive. So I'm like,
If they're already nailing the half ounce, it's like, I guess that goes with any lure. If they're already nailing it, there's no need to switch. But sometimes when they're being finicky, and I grew up in New Jersey with super, super pressured fish, and it really taught me a lot. And sometimes going down to that 1/4 ounce makes a huge difference as far as getting bites.
got it. So if you had to choose 3 colors of bin skis for anybody to go out and buy to learn how to use a blade bait, specifically the bin ski, what 3 colors would you tell people to purchase and use and why?
Okay, there's a lot of good colors that they make, and it's hard to nail it all down. If I had to pick 3 for someone that's getting into it, first and foremost, this is obvious. Everyone knows I'm already going to say this, but the silver. That's the most classic color. Every blade bait they make in a silver, but the silver catches any species, no matter the time of year. The silver is like a really, really good go-to. Can be easily mixed with gold, but I'm going to just say silver to kind of keep things simple. The next one I would say, if you have a little more stained water, is the chartreuse blue. The chartreuse blue. I don't have one on me right now, but if you go on fishsenselures.com, you can peel through all the colors. Chartreuse blue is a dynamite color for not only smallmouth but lake trout, walleye love it. Kind of everything loves it. That's like a really good color. And then the third one would be, and this is kind of a strange one that took me a while to kind of get into, and it was actually Steve, the owner of Fish Sense Lures, that really is the red. The red is not to be slept on, man. There's been days I've had out there, and more so, I've really gotten into the red the past like 2 or 3 years, like the past like 2 years in specific. There's been days I have my buddies in my boat, or I have clients in my boat, and everyone's like, dude, give me one of those reds. I don't want to be fishing any. The red is just going off. And I don't know what it is. They call it red craw. I don't know if they think it's a crawfish. I don't know what they're thinking down there, but there's been days that the red really, really takes over. More so on our inland lakes and the Finger Lakes. I haven't really experimented with it as much on the Great Lakes, a little bit, but on our inland lakes, the red really, really takes over sometimes.
It's very interesting. I wonder if it has something to do with like how shallow fish are. Like on the Great Lakes, I wonder if they would eat that red more shallow than
Mm-hmm.
like when they'd eat that blue and chartreuse or a gold and silver or like the sexy shad. So
Right.
yeah, that I have some of the red ones and I'm like, I haven't figured out where I want to throw this. So I
Yeah,
haven't thrown it yet.
it's a weird when you look at it, and they did a beautiful job with the color scheme.
Oh,
It looks gorgeous, but just the red, the concept of red is one of those things you look at it, and then your just instinct is to go grab the silver one or the gold one. You know what I mean? Because it's just more natural for the angler. But that red is something I've built a ton of confidence in. And like I said, there's some days where it was like everyone in the boat wanted the red. And it catches muskies, it catches walleyes. There's a couple Finger Lakes that have muskies in them, and for whatever reason, they really like come unglued on the red Binsky. I don't know why that is, but
just
I've noticed.
something different. And
Yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
that's all we can point it down to. We may never know why, but it's something different and it
Yeah,
works. So
exactly.
that's really neat. So one last one before we let you go here, Kurt. But where do you target bass during the fall with a blade bait?
As far as location, it's going to vary depending on the body of water that you're talking about. It's a relatively deeper presentation. That doesn't mean like it always has to be deep, but I'm definitely not throwing in areas that are like say less than 10 foot. That's kind of like more of a swim bait game or something else. But anywhere, I'd say my target depth is anywhere from like 15 to 40 feet. That doesn't mean you can't go deeper than that. And with lake trout, we certainly go deeper than that. But smallmouth, largemouth, anywhere from that 15 to 40-foot range is the best. And that's a big area. You know what I mean? Every place is going to be a little different. Really sharp rock transitions is a good area for it. If you're in a reservoir, You go to the dam in the fall, find the dam in the reservoir. It's usually got a rock on it. That's a really good area to catch a lot of fish, also lose a lot of baits, but that's part of it with any lure. But a dam is a really good spot. Offshore, you look at anywhere on your topographic map and you find something that looks juicy, that's going to be an area as far as like drop off shoals, transitions between different bottoms. So I've been on the Great Lakes. We've been really slamming them on a clay bottom. And I don't know if that's warmth. I don't know exactly why those fish are there, but the clay. And then you find like boulders that are next to the clay, and I'll side image around, and it'll be blank, blank, blank bottom, and it's clay down there. And then you can find these certain areas that just all of a sudden you'll just see a bunch of boulders, and a lot of fish will kind of be on the edge of those boulders where the kind of clay transitions into the rock. That's a really good area. But those classic fall schooling areas, and listen to your electronics. A lot of times it depends on the fishery. Some of the smaller lakes I don't graph around as much just because I know them a lot. The bigger areas up on Lake Ontario and our bigger Finger Lakes, a lot of times I won't even really fish too much if I don't see them on my electronics first. And fall schooling smallmouth, you're looking for big giant groups of fish, and a lot of times you see them first, and I don't want to waste my time fishing for nothing. So I'd like to see them on even on your 2D. 2D is kind of becoming a little bit of a lost art in the fishing community, but I use 2D like all the time when I'm out there, and I've got a lot of confidence in the 2D, and it's how we found some really good pots of fish.
You got to get some Mega Live on that boat.
I guess so. Yeah, that's a topic for another day, but I guess so.
It's kind of fun when you can see your blade bait out like 55 feet in front of the boat, and you can see it flicker, and you can watch the smallmouth literally chase it back to the boat.
Oh wow,
up and down, and all of a sudden you'll hop it, and as it's coming down, you can watch them come up in real time and smoke it.
Right.
So,
that's interesting.
Really drive you nuts once you figure that out. Like,
right.
Why won't they eat?
Yeah, my eyes would just be, if I had that on my boat, my eyes would just be glued on it for the next 50 years. I know that much.
Yeah, until something even more insane comes
Right.
out. And I lied. I did say that was the last question, but I did forget. I wanted to ask you, and this is kind of an important question with the blade baits right now. There's the multiple holes on top.
Mm-hmm.
What are those holes for, and why are they so important for the presentation?
Right. So it's going to change all blades. Well, most blades have a few different holes. Let me get this up close there. The Binsky has 4 different holes. I don't know if that's really too visible there. The Binsky has 4 different holes. If there was one that I had to pick, without a doubt, it's the 3rd hole from the front. So if you're counting from the eye, 1, 2, 3, that is the one. That's the position that to me gives you the best contact and the quick vibration. As you move the clip farther forward, it's going to be a little less consistent vibration, and you can pull it up farther with like a crack of the rod. You can pull it up farther and get less vibration. So sometimes that's a good thing as far as being a little more subtle. So the farther you go towards the front, the more subtle the vibration is going to be. The farther back, the more aggressive the vibration is going to be. But as far as contact, either the 3rd or the 2nd hole are the best bet, and I would definitely recommend everyone that's starting out that 3rd hole, if counting from the front, is the one that I have a lot of confidence in.
Yeah. Thanks, Kurt. Appreciate all the tips that you laid out for our awesome viewership here. Is there anything that you want to touch on before I let you get out of here and get some sleep before you got to unshovel yourself out to go fishing tomorrow?
Oh, I don't know. We'll see what the weather brings, but I'm excited to have this. I love fishing in the fall. I love being cold out there and getting on some fall schooling fish. So I'm excited to see what this fall has in store. And I know you've been out whacking them steelhead fishing. I see your pictures every day, dude. You guys are crushing.
Yeah, one of these days we'll get you to come out if you get a break.
I would love to.
We'll go stream fishing
as much as I would like to, but the tributary kind of thing. But I've for some reason I've had like a big urge to do it this winter. So maybe we'll have to link up.
Yeah, we'll figure it out, because I still want to come catch some Atlantics on top water like we talked about last year.
It didn't. That bite never really happened as good as previous winters this past winter, but I'm thinking things are going to be a little different this year. So we'll get you out there.
Fingers crossed. Well, I want to say thanks for joining us here today, Kurt, and I'm going to let you go here as I wrap things up, and I'll shoot you a text in a little bit, and I want to say thank you for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, man. I always appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. You have a good day, man.
Take it easy.
We'll see you. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in to this week's awesome episode here on the Lure Lab, talking about blade baits with Captain Kurt Hoefig down there on Cayuga Lake in Lake Ontario, Absolute Finger Lake Hammer. But as always, if you're tuning in on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, the thumbs up, leave a comment down below what your favorite blade bait is to use. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you leave us a review. So it helps us bump up to the top so more people can view and listen to each episode of the Lure Lab. But until next time, we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next Saturday.